I'm really happy to have on the show Craig Palmer, the CEO of Gracenote. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show. How's it going?
Very nice to be here.
So basically, let's start talking about Gracenote as a company. It has so many different sides to it. But in terms of the music business, what are the latest developments for Gracenote?
Well, as I think many know, we've been around for quite a long time and working in the music industry. By the way, this is Ty Roberts, our CTO. And what we're really focusing on this year is really the penetration that we've had overall in the cloud-based music services, which are really, I think, the current wave in the music industry, which many believe will be very influential and important for establishing, the kind of value proposition with the consumer. And so, as we've announced today. And yesterday, we are embedded into the new Sony music service, and also have been embedded into quite a few music services like Pandora and Mog, Spotify, Omniphone, etc. The way that we're utilized in these services is in a number of fashions. In the case of Sony Music, as an example, we power one of their most creative features, which is using our fingerprinting technology to identify someone's collection that they load into the cloud and mix it with everything that is available, in the cloud in the Sony Music service, and make kind of the whole intersection of your own personal music in the cloud available on all the devices that Sony supports. We also provide a lot of technology and content that fuels recommendation and channel-based services inside Sony and other services to be able to have interesting channels to play, to be able to get more music like a particular song that you want to build a channel around, get artist recommendations, get album recommendations, etc. We also provide lyrics. We're the company that really pioneered bringing digital lyrics to the marketplace, working with the publishers many years ago. And so many services, not Sony yet, although we expect them to launch it, but Pandora and other companies utilize us to bring lyrics to their user base integrated into the cloud-based services that they offer.
And naturally, metadata is at the center of your company's business. So how has the core metadata offering expanded from where you started out to today, and how much more do companies want and need out of that?
Well, I think metadata provides really the core fundamental content that allows music to be organized, navigated through, experienced, etc. And obviously we've been around for quite a while, so the database that we have has really just grown exponentially over the years. So I think we're up to, if I can remember a few of the facts, over 100 million tracks of metadata. We, a few years ago, started launching our own proprietary attributes around artists and tracks. Artists, classifying them for things like era of music and origin and country, and are they a band or a single artist, are they male or female, a whole range of artist-based attributes. And just recently we've launched what we call our track-based attributes, which we use some of our algorithms to analyze music and come up with the mood and the tempo and other things that really provide mechanisms that are utilized for recommendations and channels to be able to find similar-based music. We also, over the years have really married content that comes from consumers, which is where we actually started 10 or 12 years ago, getting a lot of data provided by our consumers, with content partners who submit music and data directly into our service. And now I think we're also announcing that we've crossed the boundary of about 3,000 content partnerships at the show that I think spans all the major labels, all the independents, individual bands, etc., all submitting content into the database. So it really is quite an amazing global database, and certainly the biggest one in the world in the music industry.
And from a technical standpoint, if I can bring you into the conversation, how did you develop the new Discover feature that you have for mood-based sort of music discovery? And was it quite a challenge to develop something from scratch?
Well, the way the Discover feature works, the first thing we were able to use is our statistics. One of the things that we get is every time someone looks up something in our service around the world, we get a kind of a query from somewhere. We know exactly kind of the region it was from, and then we know, of course, what they looked up. And so we can kind of record these statistics anonymously to generate kind of a very good map of what's popular and what's interesting. And that's really one of the most major guides inside the product of what people we should be recommending. Then on top of that, we actually add these, like Craig was saying, the attributes to kind of filter down to the exact kind of music you might be interested in. And then we have something very interesting inside there, kind of a little piece of science called the correlate system, which basically brings different closely related genres of music together into the recommendation. And that way, things are not so narrowly recommended as just if you want to recommend something that's folk music, it's nothing just that are actually folk music. You might get bluegrass recommended in there or something that's kind of near to that basically would be pulled in by the correlate system. And that gives a broader, I think, more interesting set of music to look at than what other systems do.
And what is your approach to APIs and open code in terms of, a lot of companies out there, especially startups, are concentrating on letting other people access part of their database in order to create other services that are quite cool and interesting. So are you guys closed, open? What is your stance on that?
Well, some of the things we do are embedded software, and in those cases, it is actually a closed system because we're making it for like a car product and this kind of thing, and it's pretty technical to actually deliver things. But then we also are a big network service company, and so in those cases, the APIs are accessible. So, for example, the cover art or the lyrics or these kind of things are the kind of things that you can get access to much more easily. We do typically give people an SDK, but the SDK is just to simplify the interface, and it's not like something that's got secret sauce in it, just to help organize the information. Because a lot of times what we're returning are fairly complicated, numerically associated lists of things. And so to write the code to navigate all that kind of correctly is actually challenging. So we give that to them. Almost everyone can get access to the raw information, and some people just go straight to that. But the reality is they might want some help to figure out how to actually utilize it. So we do both.
And do you provide all the backend in terms of technically for the when people make a query, and does that all go through your servers, or do you go through the service provider that you partner with?
Okay, well, for most products, that's how it works. But we do have some products where we have content sets like lyrics, where we actually can give the content to the partner, and they can host it on their own website. But for the most part, yes, that's what they're doing. They're going to our backend, and we run that, and then we also QC their application, to make sure it's going to work properly. We kind of have like a test version of the service that they're allowed to use while they're developing, in case they make mistakes and won't, take down the whole network. So, and once their app is basically working, then we can turn it onto the main stack, and that's kind of how it works.
Actually, one of the things that's I think an interesting fact about our service too is that we're announcing at the show is we've crossed the boundary of a billion devices that have now embedded Gracenote into their products or technology that spans handsets either being embedded with the handset from the manufacturer, or carriers who embed us and complement their service, in automobiles like Ty mentioned, in home products, a wide variety of them, in PC and internet applications that ship on computers, etc. And so we've crossed a billion devices. For all the things that talk to our service from a network connected perspective, we're up to a magnitude now of about 5.5 billion queries a month that hit our service. And it spans probably about 200 to 300 million consumers that are utilizing our service on a unique level. So it's quite a global phenomenon, I think, in terms of the reach that Gracenote has gotten to now.
And Gracenote is owned by Sony, naturally, but it's an interesting company because on the one side it's owned by Sony, on the other side it's maintained its own independent operation, and that's kind of the reason why a lot of other majors are happy to use the service. So what is your relationship with Sony, and how closely do you collaborate with them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So Sony purchased the company a couple of years ago, and as you said, they maintain us in a very independent fashion. We report up to Sony Corporate America, which is just a holding company that Sony Pictures and Sony Music reports up into. They've left us focus in a very independent fashion. All of the customers and partners that we had at the point of the acquisition, we've increased and expanded our business with since. So they've actually helped us accelerate the business to the market as a whole. But obviously, they were very interested in having the kind of Gracenote functionality brought to bear into their services as they developed a wide range of network services. So we also have a team that works very closely inside of Sony helping to add value to literally dozens and dozens of products and network services that they offer. And so, they recognize that the kinds of things that we do can't really be funded and done right if it's owned and only utilized by one company. That's very hard to do. But they also wanted to, take advantage of the kinds of strategic things that we can do. And so I think we've done, an excellent job of care and feeding and working with the external marketplace, but also, helping Sony launch services and build unique value.
And to conclude the interview, I wanted to know from both a CEO and CTO perspective, what are the challenges for Gracenote for the years ahead, and what is your focus going to be towards?
Well, a good question. I think in the music industry, we tend to be pioneers of new technology, and so we're always looking for what are the new things that we can bring to market that can, in the products that we're embedded into, just expand and create, an even better user experience. And so there's areas that we're working on right now that, in the area of visualization, we're working with Getty, and we've announced our relationship with them previously to bring wide ranges of artist imagery to bear and be able to allow companies to sequence that imagery in a nice experience, as opposed to just putting up a static album art type of image. We're also working with our mood technology to be able to analyze the music and also extract images that match the mood of the music, et cetera. And so that's kind of one vector that we're taking in the music industry. Another thing that's really important for the company outside of the music industry is, over the past few years, we've also been expanding really rapidly into the television video arena, and so we now have a fairly deep portfolio of products that are similar to what we do in music, which we're now doing for television and movies, and so that's actually a very important area for the company strategically also that we've been announcing a number of products in.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I look forward to seeing what Gracenote is going to come up with in the next few years.